And then I will ask the Honorable Minister of Justice acting to contribute, then we conclude this motion.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, to thank the committee chairman and Seconder for bringing out responses to the petitioner's quest to stiffen penalties for people, I believe, that are found guilty of the offenses of corruption. Mr. Speaker, I also subscribe to the principle of innocence until one is proven guilty. This particular report has surprised me a little bit because it's much more punitive than corrective. But maybe I'll delve just for 2 minutes to make some definitions about what corruption is. Corruption is simply immoral and dishonest behavior. Immoral and dishonest behavior. That is what drives corruption. And the icing on the cake of corruption is also appetite, insatiable appetite and greed. That people who drive a corrupt agenda push, and the effects on downstream is that it corrupts also society, it breaks the state, it actually does a lot of harm to morals. And I want to argue this morning or afternoon, Mr. Speaker, that corruption in the report, to me, appears to be confined to bribery and also extortion and exchange of favors with money. I want to argue that it goes beyond that, because I started by saying it's a moral-based issue. Corruption also includes many things that may be described as patronage, that may be described as undue influence on society. And that's why when a computer is corrupt, many chances than not, it will crash. It makes a whole society dysfunctional. So I want to congratulate the committee for bringing out this. But I think that the Third Liberation Movement brought this because they saw the existence of this vice. Corruption has been there for a long time in this country. And different administrations have been dealing with the issue of corruption in different ways. I'll take the era of President Levi Patrick Mwanawasa. I think he had a different approach to corruption that the party, the Liberation Movement Party, has brought. And we saw that the index was going down. At the time of President Levi Mwanawasa, there was no financial intelligence center. And now we have institutions, sufficient institutions such as the DEC, the Anti-Corruption Commission itself, the Fraud Department of the Police, name it, they are there. And there are people, warm bodies that go to report to make sure that they actually curb this vice. But I want to argue that it goes beyond that. Yesterday, part one, Mr. Speaker, I moved a motion about driving hate speech. I think hate speech sits on all fours with corruption. If I come at law, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm sure that Honorable Ngulube will agree with me that the Latin word of an intention to desert is called animus deserandi. And when you have an intention to corrupt a mind of another, it means that you are dishonest. That qualifies as corruption. I want to make a declaration of an interest, Mr. Speaker, because the petitioner of this Parliament They have to understand that when you are in glass houses, you do not throw stones. Or when you are in a glass house, you don't walk around naked. You don't. I declared an interest, and I want to say that the petitioner must go in front of the mirror and look at himself and see whether he's a reflection of what he's pushing this parliament to do, to kill people. The proposal here is that they must be sentenced to death. Where is the principle of reformation if you are going to take out someone's life because they were tempted? In the 10 Commandments, there is one commandment which says, "Thou shalt not steal." But God didn't say, when you steal, then we're going to execute you. That is Sharia law, Mr. Speaker. Is the petitioner trying to bring Sharia law here? Where what we are going through as a country does not warrant for Sharia law, where somebody is reported to have committed a crime, and then bang, people are picking stones and they stone them to death. I'm sure you do recall that a certain man from Galilee once challenged people who wanted to stone a woman who was believed to have been a prostitute. And he said, "He who has not offended, cast the first stone." Why I declared an interest, Mr. Speaker, is that I am a victim of the petitioner. The petitioner, the party, and I'm not going into personalities, did write a hate speech on me and accused me of saying I want to touch this country in 2021, just 2 days ago. And I looked at this and I said to myself, oh my God, where does this lie? I don't know the petitioner. But just now when I was flipping through Google, I realized he's the one I greeted outside here in the lobby, and he gave me so much respect. Murishan, my honorable. It's deception. This is corruption.
The meaning of Murishan, my honorable.
Murishan, my honorable means, how are you, honorable member? With the utmost respect. It is deception. When you do write hate speech, it is also corruption, Mr. Speaker. And that's why I said the mover must go in front of the mirror and look at himself. Maybe he'll need to get some blackheads removed from his head or her head. But let me drive the point home. And in sticking to the report, I have said we should not just pinpoint at things that are sensational. They say, do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. Mr. Speaker, as a result of this corrupt act of the petitioner's representative, I got a call from the police. Can you report yourself because you intend to touch this country? And I said to those who called me, go to the Electoral Commission of Zambia, get the minutes of what was discussed, and find out if I did that. It is a pity. And I think this is a defining moment for all of us to state to each other that do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. There's no reason to try to become a superstar and try to bring someone down. Only God up ahead, there in heaven, can bring anyone down here, including governments. And this is the reason why we are desirous of forming government. That's our desire, and it's within the Constitution. But in desiring to be part of government, we should not stand on a pedestal and throw mud anyhow. It becomes also corruption of the highest order. And so we should not be apologetic about our desire, our quest to sit where our Honorable Minister of Defense is sitting, because that's what the Constitution provides for us. But in doing that, let's chart a way that will leave the Minister of Defense intact, even after he leaves that office to go and retire. Because many have been there and many have gone. But if we are going to go into this idea of peddling lies, or sorry, I withdraw the word lies, falsehoods against each other, including going to Anti-Corruption Commission to report a crime that does not exist, it is diabolical. It's sinful to do that. And I think that it is a defining moment for sure, because I'm holding my emotion. what the petitioner was wishing for is for me to be locked up for inciting. There's a law in this land that answers to people who incite. And if one is caught, then you lose your freedom. Was that the wisdom of the... So I've made my point, but to summarize, is to say indeed, to make it unbailable is not tenable. To make it Sharia law, to be hung by the neck until you are pronounced dead, is not tenable. What we need to do is to use the institutions that are available within our disposal in the most effective manner, a manner that is political, a manner that is transparent, a manner that is fair, because the laws, the current Zambian laws, are adequate, Mr. Speaker. They are adequate to the point, to the decimal point. There is no inadequacy in the law currently that deals with the issue of corruption. It's a matter of how we enforce. The same story like the hate speech that I moved the other day. We just said the enforcement mechanism must now be invoked so that society can bring itself back to the balance. But you cannot, you simply cannot do things for the heck of it. Surely, even as the petitioners were writing this, did they think that we seated here, all of us here, would have agreed to such an act of making corruption a non-bearable offense? What about the presumption of innocence until one is proven guilty? Where do we remove that? It is not tenable. But I do realize that everyone grows up, including political parties. I have a bit of advice to the liberation movement as a petitioners. Please come straight without any emotion when it comes to lawmaking. Because if you are going to bring emotions when you are making laws, the same law may apply to you. And I'll give a quick example and I'll sit down. There was a law where they said motor vehicle theft should not be bailable. Our late President Michael Sata, may so rest in peace, he didn't steal no car, but people were vindictive. At one time, government then came and said, no, he's holding a car which is not his. He was at Longacres police for 3 weeks, no bail. But he was part of the people who made that law here. Okay? The law turns around. There will be people here when we change the constitution to make sure that the threshold for one to qualify to become an MP or a councillor must be grade 12. There were members from that side who were saying, here. And by the time the law was passed, it was too late. They applied and said, but you voted that you don't qualify. They are there. And they had to start running back to secondary school to go and write a Form 5 examination. So that is my advice to the young party. I wish you well as you grow, as you maybe record the first councillor, the first MP, and maybe the president one time in the future, that laws are supposed to be made in a non-emotional way. Because then you know that you are balanced. That's why at court, there is that thing that is like a scale. It means to balance society. If you are going to make a law in order to fix someone, be sure that it may be just you who will be fixed. Because as a man lives, so shall he die. If you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Acting Minister of Justice, Honorable